right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Play Pause Rewind. This week we are on episode 18 and talking about Free Guy. Came out a little while ago, but before we dive in, and we'll do non-spoilers for a few minutes and then full spoilers going forward. But before that, Niles, how have you been since our last episode?
Just terrible. You know, it's just been such a hard time.
It's awful. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for your concern. No, I'm doing great as always. We're filming these on Sunday mornings, so every Sunday morning I'm feeling great because I get to talk about movies with Dylan, and this is it's such a fun thing to do, and this was such a fun movie to watch too. I mean, fun, I think, is going to be said a million times throughout this podcast because
I agree. I think it's the best descriptor for this movie. It's directed by Sean Levy, and it stars Ryan Reynolds, Taika Waititi, Jodie Comer, Joe Keery, and Lil Rel Howery. And the basic premise is Ryan Reynolds plays a guy named Guy, and he is a bank teller video game NPC. But he does not know he's an NPC. He thinks that's just his life. And like all NPCs in video games, he has his little loop that he does. Or not all, but many. He has his own little loop, and that's his life. And then he comes into contact with a woman who understands what he is, and then the plot jumps from there. So, yeah, overall, really fun, lighthearted movie, I felt, with a decently unique twist on the premise that it's playing with. What were some of your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I would kind of say the same thing. It was just a really fun, lighthearted film. And yeah, it did have a very unique twist on it because it plays with that idea of artificial intelligence, which we'll kind of dive into a little bit later. But, going into this movie, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. Like, I've seen Deadpool, and I've seen other Ryan Reynolds films, so I know kind of what to expect from him. He's pretty consistent, and I really hope this episode doesn't become like a Ryan Reynolds fan club hour episode.
Yeah.
Because he's just such an amazing guy from every angle. He's hilarious. Like, just watch Deadpool and this movie, and you'll see just how funny he is. And
he's a great comedian.
He's a marketing genius. Yeah, he's a marketing genius. He's really good at business. Like, he understands how to do very well in our hyper digital age. But yeah, like I was saying, when I came into this film, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. I just knew it was going to be funny and that it was going to have a good story, and it met those expectations and then blew past them, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, I found this movie way more earnest than I thought it was going to be going into it, and it was ultimately pretty heartwarming in a lot of ways, which we'll get into more in spoilers. But it's like, I could see something like this being a very cynical comedy, which is a lot of the comedy landscape in movies, I think. But it really, like, it doesn't take any cheap shots at anybody. Everybody's, like, kind of just wanting to do the right thing, except for the villain, but we'll get to him later. And it's just... It's overall a pretty positive movie, and it makes you feel good when you watch it. And I don't know, in this day and age, that's nice to have a movie like that every once in a while. So
yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about it more in spoilers, but it had like two plots. It had like a plot of something that's going on inside the video game, and then it had the B plot in the real world. And I guess you can't even really label them as A or B because they really both felt very important to each other and to the entire story. So it was nice to see that kind of dynamic, and I like to see like the romance in it too. That was like, it was still a little formulaic, but I felt that was at the heart of the movie, and it was kind of the thing that was driving everything, and they had a very good reasoning to have that romance in the story.
And I think too, we'll have to talk about it more in spoilers, but the romance really works on a level that I was worried it wouldn't, and I can't really explain why until later. But I also thought the movie balanced really well, being a pretty lighthearted comedy and also having very real stakes that keep getting upped throughout the plot. Like, it's serious enough when it needs to be to make you feel worried for the characters, but it never loses its tone.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Yeah, honestly, I don't have a lot to complain about with this film. It was solid through and through. Like you were just saying, it was lighthearted, but it felt serious at moments. And, it was just all around really good. Like, if I did have to say one complaint, I felt that, like, without diving too much into spoilers, I felt like the real world reaction to the game and like the NPC guy, I felt that was a little unrealistic. Like, I mean, Fortnite's great, sure, but I'm not going to go crazy if there's an NPC in that game who suddenly becomes self-aware. Like, I'm going to say, that's neat, but I'm going to keep going on with my everyday life, and I'm not going to drop everything to watch it, you know?
Right, and I think we'll talk more about that specifically in spoilers, because I think there is a reason why people gravitated towards Guy and what he was doing. But I agree, it is a little unrealistic, but I think there's also potential for realism in that. I think once we elaborate with spoilers, it'll make more sense. But I do agree. It's like people in video games are assholes a lot of the time. It's a place where people vent their frustrations. Niles specifically is a monster in Grand Theft Auto.
Aren't we all, though?
I just started police chases. You did some sadistic shit, which we don't need to dive into. But but I think
sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think the concept of this movie is really fun, and crucially, unlike a lot of other things, it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like, it's the perfect length with the story it's telling. The pacing is very good, and so you never feel bored throughout, I would say.
Oh yeah, I don't think there was like a single point in the film where I was like, okay, speed this up a little bit. Like this part's a little bit too long, and you know, I don't think that we're super critical of pacing in a lot of films sometimes, but you know, this film felt like it took the right amount of time to tell the story. Maybe the ending could have been a little bit quicker, but that's tiniest little nitpicky complaint.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to jump into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's dive on in.
Cool. One thing right off the top that I did not expect based on the marketing is I didn't expect how much of this movie would, one, be in the real world, and two, how much the like core of the plot was in the real world. That was a really nice surprise for me.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. I mean, you know, I think I saw maybe one trailer for this movie, and I thought it looked funny, and I assumed that it was just all going to take place in the digital world, and we were just going to get to explore that world. And I 100% did not believe that there was going to be like, or not 100%, but yeah, I felt like the real world plot maybe would have been like 10-15% of the film, and the rest of it would be inside.
I agree. I also didn't know, like, the girl, Millie, in the trailer. I didn't know she was going to be a player. I thought she was going to be, like, another character in the game who had just become self-aware before Guy or something, and I thought it was going to be the video game people fighting against the evil developer, like, for their existence or something, which it is cool. Kind of, but there's more to it than that. And I really enjoyed the real-world plot with Millie and Keys, and the fact that the whole thing was like, it's really a legal battle over this proprietary tech that the villain stole from them. And
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a nice way to tie it into the real world, and it's funny too, because like I don't know anything about video game code. I don't even know where to start, but I imagine it's incredibly complex.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly detailed, and there's a lot of algorithms and lots of things going on. So it's kind of bonkers to me that Antoine, who's played by Taika Waititi, wouldn't, like, if he's like this kind of like self-proclaimed genius, it's like, dude, come on, like, just take the time to like just pay them enough money for this. Like, come on, like, you don't need to like be real shady about this shit.
But I mean, that is kind of how it goes in a lot of these businesses. Like a small developer or small business person has a really innovative idea, and they have the tech for it, and then they get approached by a seemingly like amiable big businessman who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring your tech to the world. Like, you made this cool thing, and I'm gonna help you deliver it to people," and then they just steal it ultimately. Like, it's how it usually goes in those types of situations. So I thought that was a very small little commentary on corporate culture, especially in the gaming space, because indie development is really tough, and when you're approached by a big publisher, like, that seems like a big break, and a lot of times it is, but maybe like your baby is stolen from you at the same time.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, as we're talking about this, another thought just kind of popped into my head is that makes this a little bit more relevant to today. To today, and they certainly probably didn't see this problem coming when they were making this film. But I think that we have to talk about the recent stuff that's going on at Blizzard.
Oh, okay.
Well, we don't have to talk a lot about it, but I'm just saying everything that's kind of going on with Blizzard with the employee walkout and the sexual harassment claims and stuff. I feel like you could at least interpret Free Guy to a lesser extent with like Antoine and his like handling of Tsunami in the game.
Yeah. I mean, the gaming space is very toxic overall, especially towards women and people of color. And the movie doesn't touch on that element specifically, but it does play with the idea of, like the celebrity status of a lot of higher up game developers, like what happened at Blizzard, sort of empowered them to do a lot of really terrible things to people. And nothing Antoine does in this movie is remotely as serious and horrible as what the people at Activision Blizzard did and got away with for years. But it does touch on the toxicity of the gaming and broader tech corporate space, I think, because it is a lot of it is kind of boys club atmosphere and tech bro and just stealing of tech, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not 100% up to date with all of it, so it just kind of popped into my head as we were having this conversation. I was like, oh, it's a small little commentary. If you wanted to interpret it that way, you could see it.
And it's just a broader commentary on corporate culture and how the people at the top of the corporate chain didn't necessarily earn their status there. They just were good at jumping on the bandwagon of other people's creative and innovative ideas, like Tesla. Elon Musk didn't start Tesla. 2 other guys did. He just bought it.
He said, I want that. Give me that.
So it does kind of play with that a little bit. But Antoine, fortunately, in the movie is a fun villain. He's not just evil. He's entertaining to watch. He's pretty funny. And I like his entrance is it's like, oh, I thought you were at Burning Man. It's like, do I look like I'm at Burning Man? No, I'm here.
He's so funny, and I don't think that we've really seen Taika Waititi in like a villain role before.
I don't think so either. I could be wrong,
not to my knowledge. I don't really think we've seen him in that kind of role. But he's always kind of, I've seen him in What We Do in the Shadows, and he's always been kind of behind the camera doing the directing, and he did a great job as Hitler in
well, I guess he's a villain
Rabbit.
In that.
Yeah, I guess he's a villain in that. I
Hitler.
Completely forgot about the world's biggest villain ever.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I think he did a great job in this film. Like, it was nice to see him kind of taking his comedic style and applying it to a different character, and I think he just kind of knocked it out of the park. Like, he was a total douchebag. He screamed of like corporate culture and he was really funny.
Yeah, he screamed like corporate tech bro culture very well. And I had another thought on him, but I'm totally forgetting it. No. But yeah, fun villain overall.
Well,
and
I just love that one scene where he was like on the floor, like trying to get an idea, and then he tries to do the kick flip thing back up.
Oh yeah, he can't get back up.
Tries to jump back up into a standing position. It's like, nope, not working, dude.
Nope, he's not athletic enough to do that. Doesn't he just he drops down and starts meditating in the middle of the office, right? That's why he's down there. He just plops down into a meditative stance and starts going for it.
I gotta figure this out. Gotta figure out the answer to this easy to solve problem.
And I love how just smarmy he is. Like, he comes back because he wants to capitalize on the popularity of Guy, the NPC, or he thinks it's a player at this point, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, we got to capitalize off this for Free City 2. And then he's just like a blatant liar and open with his employees about his lies. It's like, but Antoine, you said like Free City 2 would be backwards compatible and people would be able to take over all this stuff. He's like, I lied.
He's like, I don't care.
Yeah, which is also a bit of a commentary on the video game space. It's like franchises and IP always wins out, which he even basically says, like, why would I fund your new project when I have an intellectual property and we can make more money by releasing Free City 2? Like, that's why we have 15 Assassin's Creeds, that most of them are pretty much the same thing as each other. So
for all that money, all that dough.
Yep.
Yeah, I love when he was just kind of talking and he was like, numbers are is money. Like, we're just talking about numbers. Like, it's just all about money. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, yeah, it definitely speaks to like, yeah, kind of corporate America and the way we're just always just geared towards just income, getting as much profit as possible. We're not caring as much about the experience or like what kind of value we're creating for others. It's just
Right.
money, money, money. But,
And it comes out at an interesting time in the video game industry too, because in the last 10 years, I would say, like, with digital storefronts becoming more and more of a thing, like, indie games have seen a big renaissance, and this comes after an era where, like, what was called, like, the AA game, like the mid-tier game, basically all but evaporated, and everything from the big studios became, like, bigger and bigger and bigger in AAA. Like, we see the same thing in movies, where it's like everything is becoming increasingly IP driven, and it's like boom or bust. Either the game makes $800 million or it's not profitable, or it's considered a failure, because it's like these big companies accountable to their shareholders who want to see growth and growth and growth. Every game has to be a huge hit. So, like, a lot of the more sort of mid-tier games we used to see stopped being made. But now you have a lot of indie development happening, and they're resurrecting genres that have been considered long dead. And you have that in contrast with the big AAA space, where everything is like Halo again, Assassin's Creed again, Fallout again, Far Cry again.
Game.
Yeah. Call of Duty again and again and again. And it's like IP iterating on other, like, Call of Duty has a battle royale now. It's their main moneymaker thing because Fortnite was successful. Like, that's kind of the space of AAA gaming. It's just people taking each other's ideas and trying to get money from them. So more of a commentary on that than I'm sure they realized it. Like, that's one thing I liked about this, where a lot of the writing around video games, it's not totally accurate to how game development and gaming works, but it felt like it was written from a place of knowledge, which makes the humor and the stuff surrounding it work better. The one notable exception is, like, them live patching the game. Like the low point of the movie is when the server gets rebooted. That is a regular thing for every online game. It's like every time you do a patch, the servers go down for patch day. Like, it's a thing. It's a thing that gamers know to expect. It's like there's a weekly server reset when they patch and send updates to the game. You can't live update a game because it would crash. I think.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem feasible or logical at all. But yeah, I would agree that it feels like every little bit of this game or this movie felt like it was written by someone who knows what video games are. They know the back end part of it. They know the user experience part of it. They understand how it's kind of related to the real world, and how people kind of use it too. So, and I think we kind of talked about this before too with other movie adaptations of video games, or at least we discussed it briefly before. But this movie is far and away a better representation of, like, the gaming industry and just, like, video games in general than I would say probably like Assassin's Creed or you know, some of those other really subpar video game movies that they clearly didn't know what they were doing. They were like, this is just a great, people are going to watch this movie because of the brand
name. For the
name.
IP, yeah. And exactly. I mean, this is doing a different thing than those movies too. Like, this is about a video game, whereas those movies were attempting to adapt or bring the video game narratives to screen. But you're right. Like, a lot of them are written from a lack of knowledge about why the IP works, especially Assassin's Creed. Like,
yeah, that movie was just not a great film. Not a great film.
Yeah, let's take a franchise that is popular because it's historical fiction with sci-fi elements thrown in, and let's set 75% of it in a lab in the modern day.
People are gonna love it. They're gonna love it. They're gonna buy 1 million tickets. It's gonna be great. But yeah, I feel like it's if people want to adapt video game movies, then they have to have, you know, a good idea of what the source material is, how it actually works, and, you know, I think we've talked about World of Warcraft before as well, and why that movie is way better than Assassin's Creed.
It was made with love.
It was made with love. Yeah, people, they knew what they were doing. They understood the World of Warcraft world, and they understood what people wanted to see from that world. They didn't want to be just stuck in a lab in the future. people, they wanted to be immersed in the fantasy and the culture of it, and just get lost in the journey.
Yeah, and I mean, Warcraft isn't a perfect movie either. It has a lot of problems, but it's made from a place of knowledge and love by someone who played the games growing up. And that's not a necessity to be a fan to make something like that. In a lot of situations, I think you can make a worse thing if you come at it from a place of fandom before storytelling. But Duncan Jones, David Bowie's son, by the way, knew the world well enough to adapt a story to it. It's like you wouldn't adapt a book by reading the Wikipedia page of it, but I think a lot of video game storytelling, like people adapting video games, do that, and it shows. But back to Free Guy. Let's. I want to talk about the romance a little bit because it really works for me, and it's funny and sincere at the same time, because what it really is Millie, who is the girl in the real world, one of the two characters who created the code for this AI, and they had their own little indie project. Ryan Reynolds' character Guy falls in love with her avatar in the game, and I think it's a great moment when they they kiss, and then it's like all typical movie romance music and shot composition and stuff in the game, and then it cuts to her sitting at her computer like, what the fuck is going on?
She's just all backed up like
yeah. But the reason I think it works, and I'll ask if you agree in a second, is just ultimately it's not really a romance between her and Guy. It's about her and Keys, Steve from Stranger Things, because he wrote the code through his his feelings for her that he never acted on and that she never realized. And it's a very nice storyline where like everyone involved kind of realizes this is what's really going on. I was worried she was going to fall in love with Guy and like want to stay in the video game world, and I'm glad it ultimately became about her and her like game developer partner, and then they get a happy ending too.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, actually. I think the romantic subplot was very well written, and it was well thought through because it's at the core of the movie. Mm-hmm. We have a good reasoning for why Guy came to life. It's because of his code, and the code was written by the guy who loves Millie, and it's all connected. And they got their thing going on in the real world where he signed an NDA and she's unemployed, and she's trying to sue the company to get her her money back and her property back. And it is a little complicated, but I liked it, because it's such a pain when movies, they just throw a romance into the mix because they're like, we just need a romance because
that's what audiences expect.
Yeah, we need to bring in the audience. We need to bring in that demographic, whatever that demographic is. So I hate it when romance plots are just kind of shoved into the story and they don't really have a real purpose in it. They're just there because hey, they seem like they'd make a good couple. But
it's like a box to check for the narrative.
Exactly. Yeah. This one, it's part of in Free Guy. The romance is part of the plot. It's very well integrated into it, and it's got multiple levels to it too. Because Guy likes her a lot, but he eventually realizes at the end, I'm just an NPC. I can't do this. Like this relationship won't work. I
like how chill he is with it at the end. Like she's worried that she's gonna have to like kind of let him down, and it's gonna be a sad moment. And then he's like, "Here, I'll just do it for you." It's like, I'm great, but I'm not real. And someone who made me this way is real and has these feelings for you, and you should go like act on that. It's really it's great. I don't know. Overall, it's a feel good movie. It's fun and it's happy, but it also like it does a good job at escalating the stakes throughout too. Like when there is a very real threat where like all the characters we like will die. I mean the video game ones, the real people won't. But it's like Guy's entire world is ultimately falling apart, and it escalates to where he alone has to finish the job. Like Millie gets booted out of the game, Buddy gets gets Thanos snapped, kind of. And,
he kind of does. Poor guy.
and he has to save the world, and he does, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I would agree, and I like just kind of picking back to the romance part of it. Like, I'm glad that the romance was what we got, and it wasn't something that was a little bit more dystopic, like in Her. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
I love Her. It's a great movie.
Yeah, Her is such a great film, but at the end of the film, you're just you walk away feeling really depressed because you're like, oh, the AI was all connected to other AIs, and no one really found love. Like, they were all, this love was fake. This love wasn't real, and it's kind of a difficult message to become comfortable with.
That's interesting. I had a totally different takeaway from that.
Oh, but, really? Yeah.
I mean, I guess brief spoilers for Her, but to me, that relationship, because it was about Scarlett Johansson's character developing as like a being and learning, and the relationship with Joaquin Phoenix was real, but it's like time had passed for her, and she moved on to form another relationship, which she was just like, it was her coming of age. And then for his character, it was about like, he has to get back out there. Like, he can't fall in love with his computer, but it's like the relationship both had a profound impact on both of them, but they ultimately grew in their own separate directions. I don't know.
Yeah,
I really love
true.
Her. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, we did just kind of spoil a lot of it, but go watch it.
Yeah, I'd recommend checking it out as well. I think, I think you were speaking more to like the end message. Yeah, I think that's true. That's I feel like the takeaway from the film. I suppose what I was more getting at was just like the concept of like that Her, how it's just an AI on your phone that it's your companion for life, and you're gonna fall in love with them.
Yeah, I guess the concept is a little dystopian.
But this one in Free Guy is a lot more acceptable, and it feels a lot more lighthearted and not so like serious, but it does have some serious tones to it too.
Yeah. And like, they created life, which is pretty cool. Like, it's artificial intelligence, but like, and I think you wanted to get into more talking about AI, but I really love that moment where when Guy finds out he's a video game character, like, it kind of breaks him for a little bit, and he's pretty pissed. And but he goes and talks to Buddy, who is his best friend, and Buddy is just like, I mean, I'm talking to my best friend, like, trying to help him get through a problem. It's like, that's pretty real. And it's...
Oh, well, yeah.
And I love his message. It's like, it doesn't matter if we're just background characters in someone else's game. It's like, our friendship is real to us, and that's what's important.
Oh, yeah, because at the end of the day, if something feels real to you, then it's real. Like, you don't have to... Just because it's behind a screen, a computer screen, doesn't make it any less real, because it's real to you. And that, I feel like, is the message, or at least a good message to pull away from this movie.
Right.
But yeah, I did kind of want to talk about a little bit about the AI concept of it, because, AI is always just kind of such an interest. It always creates this interesting ethical discussion, I feel like, in movies and media and TV shows and films. Whether you're watching this movie with Free Guy or any other ones, there's always this kind of ethical conversation of like, is it truly life? Is it ethical to like pull the plug on this? Is it ethical to like keep the life isolated and tucked away from society? Like, what is kind of the ground rules here? And there aren't really any ground rules, because it's artificial intelligence. You created it, and now you kind of have to guide its way through the world.
Right.
And I feel like, across all those media, we have a lot of unique presentations of AI characters too. Blade Runner, for instance, we have those like androids running around the world, and
replicants,
they're being hunted. Yeah, exactly. But they're clearly intelligent. They got crazy physical capabilities, and they're just being hunted because it's a government mandate or something like that. Like,
well, they're being hunted because they're not allowed on Earth anymore, for one, and also they're like, they've gone rogue. But the interesting thing about Blade Runner is, and it's kind of undercut if I'm gonna spoil Blade Runner, sorry, it came out like 42 years ago or something. It's kind of undercut in the final cut when it hints that Deckard might be a replicant, but I don't think he is.
Right.
And depending on the person involved in the movie you ask, he either is or is not. It doesn't really matter. But the part of the powerful point of that is that Deckard is like one of the only human characters in the film, but he is the least alive of any of them. Like, he is the one going through a routine mindlessly following programming, where at the end Roy Batty denies his programming. He's a combat model, and his final act of life is saving Deckard's life and then reciting like a very profound monologue about the nature of memory and tears in rain and how all of it will be lost. It's like, so I mean, in Blade Runner, to me, it makes the case that, and I believe this too, like past a certain threshold of AI, like it's just life unequivocally. Like at the moment, it's just programming. But if it becomes self-aware, it's a fucking living being. And then we have to have very serious ethical conversations about artificial intelligence, because it's like, we have to grant them rights if they're living beings. Like, if they can think and feel, then they should be able to like vote and do normal things and all of this. Like,
absolutely. Like, they deserve rights just as much as the others of us, I suppose. But, you know, that's a whole conversation in its own, and one that kind of goes over my head a little bit. But, you know, I do, you know, Blade Runner, that's one area of artificial life. But then, you know, we have these other representations across other media, like, you know, even like Ex Machina, you know, Ex Machina, like that representation of AI is so interesting too. Yeah. And I think one of the most interesting parts when you're talking about these characters is like how they react to humanity. In this movie, in Free Guy, you know, Guy, once he realizes he's an NPC, you know, he kind of has this internal existential crisis. Yeah. And he talks to his friend about it, but then he eventually just kind of comes to term with it, and he's like, well, it doesn't matter if I'm having a good time, and if I'm having a great time.
Have a great day.
Who cares?
His meltdown is pretty funny though. Like when he goes past the cat lady, he's like, "Close your door. They don't have thumbs, Phyllis." Like,
they're not like lockpicking their way out.
Right. But it is kind of funny seeing him, like, once the veil is lifted for him, he starts seeing the, like, programming loops of all of his people that he knew.
Yeah. Where he's like, just don't rob the bank. Stop doing that. Or like, it's the big city. You don't say. Like, I thought that was funny, too. But yeah, I appreciate how once he kind of works through the crisis internally and with his friend, he just eventually says, yeah, I'll help you. Like, I'll help you because I like you, and you're just a nice person to me, and, you know, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. But then, you know, not to spoil too much about Ex Machina, but the AI in that film takes a very different approach to escaping their
situation.
You know, they kind of use some manipulation, and they turned a little bit to violence. It's a whole thing. But I would recommend checking out the movie if you haven't already. And I just wanted to bring up this quick book. We don't have to go into it too much, but there's this book that I read in college called Galatea 2.2.
Okay.
And it's this really interesting novel where it's a work of fiction, and I can't remember exactly who these guys are, but they're basically professors at a college, and they set out on this challenge to make artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And it's this really trying process where they have to like teach it continuously every single day. They're teaching it like grammar and like how words flow and how communication works and all this stuff. So it gets really complicated, but it gets really into the details. And eventually they connect the computer to the internet. And it reads a bunch of articles on like the LA riots and like all this other horrible stuff that's going on in the world. The computer, not to spoil too much about the book, but the computer eventually just decides to shut itself off because it can't handle the reality of the world that humans have created, because we're so violent and we're just crazy, and we will destroy everything that we've ever touched or created. And
we're just the worst.
Yeah, we're just the worst. So it was kind of like it's a little bit of a dystopic or dystopic representation of artificial intelligence. But
Yep.
I remember reading it in college and just being so fascinated with it. And, I'm glad that Guy, in Free Guy, was not so dystopic about it. He wasn't depressed about it. Of course, he didn't know what was going on in the world. He has no real access to all the horrible things that humans have done. So
they do play that for a sad joke, but a effective joke where he's like, how many bank robberies happen in your world a day? And it's like, almost none. It's like, and how many like drive-by shootings do you have to deal with? It's like almost none of them. And how bad is gun violence? Like, actually, that's a huge problem. And it's like, I did not see that coming. And it's very upsetting, but it works as a joke in this movie. It's like, that's a big problem that we're not solving. But it works as a lighthearted joke in this movie because the tone is so uplifting overall. And
yeah, absolutely.
It does not go into dystopia at all, really. It's like everybody is on board with the hero's like efforts by the end. I also really enjoyed the inclusion of real Twitch streamers and content creators, a couple of whom I recognized. I don't really watch a lot of them, but I recognized their names and faces, and it added an extra level of, I guess, legitimacy to the project. It's like people who exist in the real world in this space are doing and commentating like they would in the real world in the movie, and it was just a little nice little touch for the people who maybe watch them or know about them. It adds that extra level.
Oh yeah, it was. I don't watch a lot of streamers myself either, but yeah, it's kind of makes it a little meta in a way, where it's like here's some real world people. Let's throw them into the mix, and you had those fake streamers too, with that one guy.
The guy whose avatar's Channing Tatum in the game.
That's right, Channing Tatum.
Great Channing Tatum cameo, by the way.
Yeah, he was hilarious. And like as soon as he was in the first scene, like skydiving in, I was like, I hope he shows up again later in the film.
I didn't even recognize him in that scene. I didn't recognize him until Guy breaks into his safe house, and then he gets super excited about it.
But yeah, I thought that was so funny, and like how he kind of like turns and he's like, "Hey guys, just here's an update. Here's what's going on." Like he's talking to a camera, and like Guy's like, "Who are you talking to?"
Right,
like,
right. And I love how everyone assumes Guy is a player for a really long time. And touching back to what you mentioned about how it was kind of unrealistic, how everybody got on board with it. I agree for the most part, except that I could see like Guy being the meme of the month. It's like, this is a very unusual occurrence in this game that seemingly everybody plays. And so everybody latched onto him because it was endearing and it was fun to watch. It's like everybody wants to see what Guy's up to this time as he's leveling up by doing exclusively good deeds, which was really fun.
Yeah.
And I love how he becomes a badass. Like he has this montage where he just like learns the rules of the game very, very well and becomes like a badass superhero almost.
Yeah, right. He levels up to 100 and it's like, oh yeah, I thought that was really neat. And I think we got to talk a little bit about the comedy too, like some of our favorite jokes in the film. I thought the introduction of the dude character was so funny.
It was great. It was so funny.
Like, that was such a funny idea where it's like, oh, half of his brain's written, like the code's not all there yet. And like,
what was the line? It's like, I'm here to do 3 things: kick ass, insert second thing, third thing.
It's so funny.
Yeah, and that was a great like computer joke, I think. Did you know it was going to be Ryan Reynolds, or did you expect it to be Ryan Reynolds again?
I don't. I might have seen it in the trailer, but I wasn't really expecting it, to be honest. So
it wasn't in the trailer. I think it was kept a secret. But
okay, yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all.
I expected it to be him, but I didn't know which way they were going to do it. And I love it's like, that is totally what Taika Waititi's character Antoine would think an upgrade to Guy would be. It was like same face, but just absurdly jacked, and he has a little tattoo of the blue shirt on his pec.
Yeah, just right there.
It was great.
I thought that was a great comedic point in the film, and I feel like there were so many jokes just packed into this film. Like this movie's like what, like 2 hours long?
2 hours, yeah,
if
like
that.
1 hour 55 is the runtime.
And I feel like there was a joke like at least every minute or something like that, or every few minutes. Like they did such a good job of writing things in. Like with the bank robberies, even I thought those were very funny. To how they just like
they follow the same exact
robbery.
routine, and they just like lay on the floor, smiling,
just
talking
take
about
off my
beers
belt
on the beach. Yep, and I love how none of the NPC characters react in the slightest to the mass amounts of chaos going on around them. Like when the one guy is thrown out of his shop front, and then Buddy and Guy are walking past, they're just like. They just pick him up. It's like, how's your day going? It's like, it's a good day. It's like, hey, they're a great day. And then they keep going.
He's like, oh, it's a Monday. No big deal.
I also love when he's leveling up. He moves his goldfish from the little bowl to the massive tank.
Yeah. Like, he just has so much space now. He's got like a condo. And I loved, what was it? I just had it in my head.
I don't know.
It was just another funny moment in the film. Do you have any others that are like popping into your head right now?
Well, in the action climax, I think we all had a nice comedic surprise when he pulls out the shield, and I just thought like,
that was hilarious.
He's doing a Captain America thing. It's like, no, it is the Captain America shield. The Marvel music kicks in, and then the Chris Evans cameo. He's just like, what the shit?
That was hilarious.
The one positive of our corporate dystopia we live in, where one company owns literally everything, is that we can have fun crossovers like this.
I know. It's a stark reminder of Disney's stranglehold on the industry, but I like how they included the Captain America shield and the Marvel music, and like he pulls out the lightsaber a few minutes later during the fight. Like, oh, that's awesome.
I will say the lightsaber bit did not work quite as well for me, just because they directly address it too much. I think it's like. Yeah. I think it's like Antoine's like, is that? And then it's like, yep, that's a lightsaber. It's like, okay, fucking chill.
Yeah, you don't need to say what it is.
Yeah, the Captain America shield works because we see and know what it is. It's like everybody knows what a goddamn lightsaber is. You don't need to tell me. But it was still funny. The impact of the joke was definitely the Captain America shield, and then it was diminishing returns from that point with that bit specifically. Still great. But
and I like how earlier in the film when they were like at the compound and they were talking with Channing Tatum's character, he was like, "Oh, do you want the Thanos glove? Do you want?" I thought that was kind of a neat little throw in there because it's like, oh yeah, you could do that in Fortnite once. You could get the Thanos glove.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you could. You've probably seen this before, but just because this is a film starring both Ryan Reynolds and Taika Waititi, who were both in the Green Lantern movie. Taika Waititi played Hal Jordan's best friend, but the two of them have a bit that they do where they just don't acknowledge that movie's existence. Like when they were doing interviews, I think it was for this initially or for another thing they were collaborating on, I can't remember, but they just pretended that they met for the first time on this project and that Green Lantern never happened.
That's hilarious.
It's great. And they just never break character on it. Every time they're asked about it, they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know? I'm like, no, I have no idea.
That's so funny. I mean, I remember Ryan Reynolds in that movie, but I don't remember Taika Waititi.
He's a very small character. He's just like the best friend who's around.
Right. Okay, I remember that guy. Yeah, that was.
And he was way younger. He had like full black hair at that point.
Yeah, it looked very different for sure. That's funny. If everyone could just forget that movie existed. But,
I've seen worse movies, honestly.
Like I didn't think it was terrible, but yeah, I like how that's a recurring joke in like Ryan Reynolds stuff too, with like Deadpool. Like he's like anytime he kind of like throws in a Green Lantern joke.
In general though, I think Free Guy's a really fun, feel good comedy, and it paces itself really well. It balances tone great as well. And I love that in the end, the way they really beat Antoine is that Millie goes to him. It's like, you can have all the money and everything. I don't care. Just don't destroy the thing I created. Just let me have that. And you can have all rights to the future of your franchise, which of course ends up tanking immediately because everybody saw that he stole everything live in his own game because he just started taking an axe to the servers.
It's like, oh, dude, come on, like, shit.
Yeah, but I think it dramatically builds the stakes up properly. It's like Guy and Millie and everybody are like working together, and then slowly all the pieces are taken off the board except for Guy, so he has to make it across the bridge himself, and then they get to live in their little paradise. And then also Millie and Keys find success with their indie game that everybody ends up loving, even though it's just like an observational game. And then Mouser, who's the other developer character, like very half-assed, but stands up for his friend in the end.
I know, yeah. I was really pulling for him. I was like, come on, you got to change at the end. Come on. And he did it. So I was glad that he finally came around. But yeah, he was kind of an asshole the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I did enjoy the scene where they go in as cops and chase Guy, and when Guy is like figuring out the mechanics of the stuff he's gotten.
That was so funny. Oh my gosh.
He really wanted those shoes. I love that he like wanted those shoes, and then when he like accidentally kills someone. That was a great scene too, when he accidentally kills the player character at the beginning to get the glasses. And he's like, he's just sleeping. He's just so sleeping. I'm
just gonna put this down on the ground and walk out.
And then that player was like an 8-year-old girl.
Yeah. It's too real. I feel like I feel like whenever I've played like Halo Reach or something like that, it's always been like, you know,
little kids have more time than you, just kicking the shit out of you.
Yeah, way younger people, or even on Fortnite, like they just would smoke me. But yeah, they're way below me in age.
They have more time.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, it's a great film. Yeah, great film. I have very little to complain about. Yeah, I think my only complaint is really that I think the people in the film, like the people in real life, and people just kind of all across the world, were acting in a way that I don't think people would necessarily in real life. That being said, with a meme moment kind of deal, like, oh, if there was some kind of crazy player in a video game like Fortnite or something like something else where it was an instant meme overnight, then I could see some more interest in it. Yeah. But, you know, I think it's unlikely that millions of people across the world are going to be streaming or are going to be tuning in to watch how this NPC develops in this game. And I don't think people are assholes, like we were saying earlier. Just play a few minutes of GTA and you'll see what we're talking about. Yeah. And so I don't think that people would start acting in a nice way online too. Yeah, I don't think they were really doing that as much.
No, it was more just fascination with Guy, I think.
Yeah.
And the reason they were so fascinated with him is that no one else is nice in the game, I think. But I agree, like, it is a bit unrealistic. I'm willing to suspend disbelief for the sake of the comedy movie. But a hearty recommendation from me. It's a good time. Go watch it. Obviously, like, we didn't get to it for a couple months after it came out. But it's definitely worth watching. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, great cast, great writing, great comedic timing, and just a great plot overall. Yeah, and I really hope that Disney will listen to the audience reception of it and just say, okay, this was good. This is a good film. Let's not do another one.
Yes, no sequels. Jesus Christ.
No sequels, please. Like, you know, if Ryan Reynolds wants to do another one, then, you know, I guess we can't stop him. Like, he did that with Deadpool. So
yeah.
But yeah, I hope this is just a good standalone. Disney says, okay, we're not going to make another one, and yeah, just keeps it as that.
Yep, I agree. Standalone movies are cool. Not everything has to be a franchise. And this movie ended pretty definitively and positively. Just let it lie. But
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So on that note, though, go watch Free Guy. But we're going to talk about some other stuff right now. Niles, what have you been reading, watching, playing, doing, whatever, in the last 2 weeks?
Totally. My girlfriend and I, we watched the movie Willow. The other night. It was from 1988 Ron Howard film, and it's actually a pretty fun film that kind of holds up.
It's from Lucasfilm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Lucasfilm. Like George Lucas, I think was like I think he might have like created the story for it or something like that. But he was involved in that, and like Ron Howard. But excuse me, it's got like some good big name actors from the 80s, like
Yeah.
Val Kilmer. He's got a big role in it.
Uh-huh.
But Warwick Davis is actually the main character of it. He's
Yeah.
Willow, and it's this cool fantasy story. It's on Disney Plus. I'd recommend going and checking it out if you're looking for a fun movie to watch. But it's a nice, like, kind of like whole fantasy genre where Willow, who is from this village of kind of like hobbit creatures.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact name of them, but they're all similar to Warwick Davis in stature.
Yep.
So they're all kind of short, but he's basically given this quest to return this child who's like destined to like save the world or save the empire or something like that. So he's got to like return her to like her homeland and like defeat the evil queen. So it's kind of a standard sci-fi or fantasy story,
quest thing.
Yeah, fantasy quest story, but it's pretty solid through and through. That was a fun one to check out. I hadn't seen it before, so I was like, I gotta watch this.
Yeah, I'll watch Willow at some point. I think it's getting a sequel at some point. So,
oh,
yeah, Force
cool.
Awakens style belated sequel. So we'll see.
That's all right with me. And then I have actually started watching Titans on HBO Max.
Okay, how's Titans?
It's cool so far. I liked the old Teen Titans back in the day, like the 2004 cartoon on Cartoon Network. I really liked it. I thought Beast Boy was really cool. I mean, I liked all the characters; they were just really fun. And so far, it's been pretty cool. It's far grittier and far more violent. Robin basically kills like 10 people in like the first episode, and it's like, okay, it's going to be one of those shows. Okay, I'm into that.
I remember when that trailer first came out, everybody was like, what? Because doesn't the scene include a series of dialogue where it's like, where's Batman? He's like, fuck Batman. Or is that?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like, okay, good, cool it, Robin, cool it.
Yeah,
you know who plays Batman in that series, right?
It's I actually don't know.
It's Ian Glenn. Sir Jorah Mormont is Bruce Wayne.
Cool. Nice.
I don't know when he shows up, but he is in it.
I don't think he shows up for like I'm like 4 episodes into the first season, and like Bruce Wayne has been off in the background, out of focus, so you don't see who the actor is. So I'm sure he's not.
I think he shows up in season 2.
Yeah, something like that. So, but yeah, so far it's been really cool, and I'm interested to watch more. So far, the writing's been okay, but the characters are really cool, and like the storyline has been kind of neat too. Like they're working through Raven, like Raven's like trying to like control her power. It's like she's discovering them and stuff. So it's kind of neat so far. But yeah, what about you? What have you been up to lately?
A lot actually. So in preparation for the Matrix Resurrections trailer, I decided to watch the Matrix sequels for the first time, Reloaded and Resurrections.
Nice.
Revolutions, sorry. I had spent years just trusting the internet that they sucked, and I decided to form my own opinion. Reloaded, I really like. Not as good as the first one. Revolutions, less so. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, but like there's like a 45-minute section of the film where we don't see like Neo and Trinity or Morpheus at all, and it's just like that mech battle at the entrance of Zion. I'm like, I don't really care about any of these characters. So it's both of them were a little messy. Like the first film is perfect. It's like one of the best films of all time. And one of the reasons I never watched the sequels is it left me perfectly satisfied. I didn't need to see what happened next, but Reloaded is very interesting, and they're ambitious. They're like ambitious and creative movies, even if they don't always stick the landing. The new one looks really interesting, Resurrections.
Yeah.
And apparently it is going to be meta as hell. Like there are theories that maybe the Matrix is a series of films within the new Matrix movie. There are theories that like at one point people thought it was going to be like Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss as themselves, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be that. But like people are thinking it might be a prequel. There's a guy who dresses and looks kind of like Morpheus, but isn't Lawrence Fishburne. There's like, it looks wild. I'm very interested. And
yeah, that'll be cool.
I love that Neil Patrick Harris's therapist character is like basically the therapy equivalent of the blue pill. Like he has blue rimmed glasses and he's prescribing blue pills to Neo. Like I'm interested to see what the hell is going on in this new movie.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I didn't watch the trailer, so I'm gonna watch that probably later today.
You gotta watch it. Okay, it's so neat.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that. I mean, the Matrix trilogy to me, I feel like that was kind of just once I finished it, I was like, okay, I never need to really dive back into this again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say the first one is perfect. The second one is very good as well, but it's not as good as the first one. And the third one's a big old mess. There's too much going on in it. So yeah, I can understand why people want this movie. I'm still on the fence, but once I watch the trailer, I'm sure I'll be on board.
It looks very interesting. But basically, it's like because it asks so many questions. Because like Trinity died definitively in Revolutions. Neo, I don't think died in Revolutions. That is not my read on the events of that movie. Ultimately, he passes out and he's unconscious, but I think he's definitely alive. But I'm like. But it's like, where is Morpheus? Why is Lawrence Fishburne not in this movie? He has said he was not asked to return. Also, only Lana Wachowski is making it. Lily did not come back.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, apparently she said that they had just finished working on, I think it's Sense8 on Netflix, whatever their show was, I can't remember. And also she had just kind of completed her transition around that time, and the idea of hopping back into something like The Matrix just was not appealing for her at that moment of her life, which totally makes sense, I think. But I have a very vague theory about the new Matrix. It is going to be very on the nose and deliberate with its messaging because the red pill movement co-opted the red pill in the dumbest fucking possible way. So I think the new one is going to be like, there's a great Twitter exchange. I think you've probably seen it where it's like Elon Musk says like, take the red pill. And then Ivanka Trump retweeted him. It's like taken. And then one of the Wachowski sisters was like, fuck you both. But
you got no idea what the fuck you guys are talking about.
Yeah, it's like The Matrix is an anti-capitalist trans awakening story. Not right wing, guys. It
is. Yeah, it's very anti-establishment.
Yeah,
so.
It's like the first movie ends with a song by Rage Against the Machine. It's not subtle, but the new one is going to be way less subtle, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for that. That'll be cool. And I mean, yeah, it'll be neat to see if like Agent Smith is back or anything like that.
He's apparently not. Hugo Weaving was. They approached Hugo Weaving, but due to scheduling, he couldn't make it.
Shoot.
I wouldn't be shocked if there's a surprise Agent Smith cameo or if he returns in a future movie if they keep going. But according to Hugo Weaving, he was asked if he would want to, and he just couldn't, which is sad.
Well, I mean, at the end of, not to spoil too much about Revolutions, but it feels like to me that he is the one and Neo is not,
Right,
and
they're always serious about that, too, because he's the one who really breaks down the Matrix. But it seems like Neo is in a new iteration of the Matrix.
Sure, yeah.
Like the one that you see at the very end of Revolutions where the Architect and the Oracle meet. It's like the what appears to be the Matrix in the new trailer visually looks very similar to that environment. It's much nicer. Sweet. It doesn't have the green, oppressive, like, atmosphere in it. But we should definitely talk about The Matrix more at a certain point. But I watched a lot more this week. I watched.
Good. What else did you watch?
I watched Vice. It's the Adam McKay movie from 2018. Adam McKay did The Big Short, and it's the one where Christian Bale plays Dick Cheney. And it is excellent. And Dick Cheney is a piece of shit. But as most people know. But on that vein as well, I watched the first episode of the Netflix 9/11 documentary series. Very excellent watch as well. I'm going to keep watching it. It starts with the event itself, and it's like, for full context, we got to go back to Afghanistan in the Soviet-Afghan War, and where the U.S. forces like trained the Mujahideen to fight against the Soviets, and this is where it all started. So, very informative, good watch. It's upsetting, but it's good.
Yeah, I need to check that out. I've been meaning to.
I also got Deathloop this week, the new game from Arcane Studios, who did the Dishonored games.
Oh, cool.
It's basically you play as this dude Colt who's stuck in a time loop on an island, and you have to eliminate key targets in the same run to escape the loop. Like, you have to eliminate all the targets in one day, and if you get killed, you restart the loop, and if you don't finish your tasks before the end of the day, the loop restarts. But the kicker is there's another character, Juliana, who is trying to protect the loop and can invade your game and come and kill you. And other players can play as Juliana and invade your game if you have it set into online mode. But apparently, on the note we were talking about earlier about people being assholes, there's a problem where players who are playing Juliana will just, like, spawn camp and just trap you and kill you instead of actually doing the whole cat and mouse thing. So that's sad. But I like the game a lot, but the last time I tried to play, it just forced my computer to restart itself over and over again. So hopefully they patch that, because I'd like to keep playing it, but I can't. And yeah, and I've been continuing my read-through of The Sandman. Great stuff. But that's all.
Nice. Well, that's excellent. Yeah, we'll need to do a Matrix episode in the future. Mm-hmm. Maybe one of our Rewind episodes.
Yes.
In preparation for Resurrections.
Yeah, that would be good. Hopefully, like, at the beginning of 2022, we'll have some time to do some good rewinds. There's just so many movies we got to talk about coming up in the next
so
few
many
months.
Things, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, and I don't remember what we're talking about yet, but we'll figure that out. We may have to pre-record a couple episodes because I'm going home for some time in October, but we'll figure that out. But in the meantime, Niles, where can people find you online?
People can follow me on Instagram at NilesGotNoStyles. Dylan, what about you? Where can people find you online?
So many places. You can find me on Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube also at DDayMovies, on Twitch, haven't been there in a minute, but also DDayMovies. I think that's it. And yeah, I have all of our stuff linked in the description, so if you want to follow us anywhere, just click on that. And yeah, and if you want to reach the show, playpauserewindpod@gmail.com. Send in a question. We are happy to read those on the show. And tell a friend about the podcast. Discoverability is hard for podcasts, so if you know anyone who you think would enjoy this, share it around. Leave a review, too.
Yeah, if you liked it, please like and review this episode. And yeah, we greatly appreciate all of our listeners who are listening thus far.
Yeah, thank you so much
you guys
for
are
sticking with us. And if you also... Weird thing, but if you have any feedback on how the show sounds or looks or whatever, let us know. We do want to record in person soon. I haven't figured out how to get that all set up just yet, but we're working on it. But yeah, in the meantime, if you have any feedback, we're happy to hear it. So thank you guys.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.